There is a moment, just after the kill, when everything goes still. The dust settles, the wildebeest stops moving, the hyenas that brought it down are breathing hard, flanks heaving, jaws painted red. And then, almost immediately, something strange happens. Something that looks at first glance like chaos, but is anything but. Some hyenas rush in immediately, tearing at the carcass with everything they have. Others hang back, pacing a short distance away, watching. Some sit almost quietly, waiting for something. A few approach and are driven off with a lunge and a bark. Others approach and are allowed in without any challenge at all. One female walks straight through the middle of the feeding frenzy, as if she owns the place. Because, in every sense that matters, she does. This is not random. Not one single movement here is accidental. Every position at that carcass, every bite taken, every animal driven away or allowed to feed, is the product of a social system so intricate, so deeply embedded in the biology of these animals, that scientists have spent decades trying to fully decode it. And if you stay with this, if you watch long enough, you start to see it. You start to read the language of rank playing out in real time, written in who eats and who waits, in who charges and who yields, in the angle of a tail and the pitch of a whoop carrying across a mile of open savanna. This is the story of spotted hyenas, and the extraordinary social order that decides who eats first, who eats at all, and who walks away hungry from their own kill. If you want to understand the natural world at this level of detail, subscribe now, because this is exactly where we go. The crocuta, the spotted hyena, is the most common large carnivore in Africa. That fact alone surprises most people. Many picture lions or leopards as the dominant predators of the African plains, but in terms of raw numbers, biomass, and ecological impact, the spotted hyena outperforms them all across much of the continent. From the Serengeti to the Okavango, from the Masai Mara to Kruger, hyenas are everywhere. They are adaptable, intelligent, wide-ranging, and fiercely social, in ways that place them in a category almost entirely their own among African predators. They live in groups called clans, and these clans can be enormous. In places like the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, clans of 80 or more individuals have been recorded. These are not loose, fluid associations like the bachelor groups of lions or the temporary packs of hunting dogs. Hyena clans are stable, multi-generational societies with complex internal relationships, long memories, and a hierarchy so rigid and so thoroughly enforced that rank follows an individual from birth to death. And at the center of that hierarchy, holding the whole structure together, sits the dominant female. Let us be very clear about something, because this is where the hyena story immediately separates itself from nearly everything else we know about large mammal social systems. In spotted hyena society, females outrank males. All females outrank all adult males. An adult male, even a large experienced male in his prime, sits below every single adult female in the clan. He eats after them. He yields to them. He does not challenge them for food. Not successfully. Not ever. This is called a female-dominant society, and among mammals of this size and this ecological complexity, it is extraordinarily rare. To understand why it exists and what it means for life inside a hyena clan, we need to go back to biology, back to the hormones and the anatomy and the evolutionary pressures that shaped one of the most unusual creatures ever to walk the African savanna. Female spotted hyenas are larger than males. On average, they weigh around 12% more. This is the reverse of the pattern seen in lions, where males are dramatically larger, or in most other social carnivores. But size alone does not explain female dominance in hyenas. The more remarkable factor is hormonal. Female spotted hyenas have exceptionally high circulating levels of androgens, male sex hormones, including testosterone, during both pregnancy and throughout their lives. These hormones produce physical effects that are, by any measure, astonishing. The female hyena's clitoris has become so enlarged through evolution that it is externally indistinguishable from a male penis. She lacks a traditional vaginal opening. Instead, all reproductive activities, including mating, pregnancy, and birth, occur through this structure. The result is an animal in which the sexes are extraordinarily difficult to tell apart at a glance, and in which the female carries the hormonal profile of an animal primed for aggression, competition, and social dominance. Why evolution went in this direction is still debated. The most compelling hypothesis centers on competition for food. In a world where the spoils of a hunt disappear quickly, where vultures descend in minutes, where lions can steal a carcass in seconds, where 30 hungry mouths all want access to the same 200 kilograms of meat, the female who can assert herself most aggressively at the kill site has a significant advantage. She eats more. She provides more for her cubs. Her cubs survive at higher rates. Over generations, the females who were bigger, more aggressive, and more androgen-saturated left more offspring than those who were not. And so the spotted hyena became what it is. The cost is severe. Females giving birth through their elongated reproductive structure suffer extremely high mortality during first births, and the death rate of cubs attempting to pass through this canal for the first time is considerable. Evolution rarely gives anything for free. But the social dominance that came with this biology proved powerful enough that it persisted and spread and came to define one of the most successful carnivore lineages on Earth. Now consider what this means at a kill. A clan has brought down a zebra on the open plains. It took 40 minutes and involved coordinated chasing from multiple directions, individuals working together to separate a foal from the herd, then pursuing it, wearing it down, taking it to the ground. The kill belongs, in every meaningful sense, to the clan. But the clan is not a single unit when it comes to feeding. It is a stratified society, and that stratification is about to determine everything. The dominant female, the matriarch, arrives at the carcass. She may or may not have participated in the hunt. It does not matter. Her rank is not contingent on effort. She feeds first, or she chooses not to feed yet, in which case her presence alone determines who else may approach. Her cubs, regardless of age, rank immediately below her. They may feed alongside her. An adult male who has been with this clan for years, who may have participated in this very hunt, steps back as she approaches. He does not challenge her. There is no calculation happening. This response is so deeply conditioned, so thoroughly reinforced over his lifetime, that it is essentially reflexive. She outranks him. He yields. Below the matriarch, the hierarchy fans out through the adult females of the clan. Her daughters rank just below her, and in fact, daughters inherit their rank from their mothers in a process that researchers call matrilineal rank transmission. The daughter of the highest-ranking female will eventually become the second-ranking female in the clan. The daughter of the third-ranking female will slot in just below her mother. This inheritance is not genetic in the narrow sense, it is socially reinforced. Cubs learn their position in the hierarchy by watching how their mother interacts with others, and other clan members adjust their behavior toward cubs based on who the mother is. A cub born to the matriarch is treated differently, from its first weeks of life, than a cub born to a low-ranking female. The cub learns to expect deference. It learns to assert itself. And those expectations, reinforced daily through 1,000 small interactions, shape the animal it becomes. This is one of the most striking examples of socially inherited status in the animal kingdom. Researchers who have studied Serengeti clans across multiple generations have documented the way rank passes from mother to daughter with remarkable consistency, persisting through years and sometimes decades of clan life. The daughters of high-ranking females grow up to be high-ranking females. The sons of high-ranking females leave the clan at adolescence. Males disperse, and whatever rank they enjoyed as cubs vanishes the moment they enter another clan as immigrants, where they start at the very bottom of the male hierarchy. Let us talk about those immigrant males, because their situation illuminates something crucial about how this society functions. In most social carnivore systems, males compete with each other for dominance, and the dominant male is often the one with primary access to females and food. In hyena society, males leave their birth clan at around 2 years of age and join a new clan as immigrants. They enter this new clan at the absolute bottom of the social order. They rank below every female. They rank below every other male who arrived before them. They rank, in some contexts, below cubs. And the only way to move up the male hierarchy is simply to wait, to outlast the males who arrived before them, and let time slowly elevate their position as those above them die, leave, or decline. This waiting, this patient subordination, is what defines the adult male hyena's social existence. He cannot fight his way to dominance. He cannot bully females into giving him access. He must be tolerated by the females, by the matriarch, and that tolerance is granted on the clan's terms, not his. When he approaches a carcass, he approaches carefully, with behaviors that read almost as appeasement: low posture, indirect approach, avoidance of eye contact with feeding females. If a female charges him, he retreats. If she allows him to feed, he does so quickly, often from the periphery of the carcass, taking what he can before he is displaced. And yet males are not helpless. The male hierarchy, though entirely subordinate to the female hierarchy, is itself real and enforced. Senior males, those who have been in the clan longest, have priority over junior males. They feed before them, they have better access to reproductive females, they are deferred to in male-male interactions in exactly the way that high-ranking females are deferred to by low-ranking ones. It is a hierarchy within a hierarchy, a subsystem nested inside the larger structure of clan society. There is another layer to this feeding order that adds yet more complexity. Spotted hyenas are not solitary hunters who bring food back to a den for orderly distribution. They are coursing predators that pursue prey over long distances, and a successful kill is a communal event in which participants may arrive staggered over several minutes or even longer. The animal that makes the killing bite may not be the animal that eats most of the carcass. Rank, not effort, determines access. This creates a situation that has fascinated behavioral ecologists for decades. It is possible, and not uncommon, for a hyena of high rank to arrive at a carcass after the kill, displace a lower-ranking individual who made the kill and participated in the entire chase, and feed first simply by virtue of being who she is. The lower-ranking animal may have expended enormous energy in the pursuit. She may be the reason the prey was caught at all. But she yields. Rank supersedes contribution. Why would natural selection preserve a system like this? Why wouldn't it favor individuals who resisted displacement, who defended their kill against even higher-ranking animals? The answer lies in the long game. Clan life offers substantial benefits: cooperative defense of territory, shared vigilance against lions, cooperative mobbing of competitors, communal pup-rearing. The costs of challenging a higher-ranking animal, of potentially being injured or expelled from the clan, outweigh the benefits of defending a single meal. The subordinate animal yields, returns to the periphery, and waits. In a few minutes, when the carcass is slightly depleted and the pressure eases, she may be able to feed. She has preserved her membership in a social group that dramatically increases her long-term survival prospects. One lost meal is worth far less than continued clan membership. This calculus runs through everything in hyena social life. Every small act of yielding at a feeding site is, in a sense, an investment in social stability. The hierarchy holds because individuals at every level, even those who could in a given moment challenge the animal above them, generally choose not to. The costs are too high and the social contract too valuable. Now we need to talk about the den, because it is at the den that the hierarchy expresses itself in its most consequential form. Spotted hyena clans maintain communal den sites, typically old burrow systems dug by aardvarks or warthogs, modified over time by generations of hyena use. The den is where cubs are born and where they spend the first months of their lives. Cubs begin to emerge from the den at around 3 to 4 weeks of age, but they remain den-based for a much longer period than the young of most other large carnivores. And the den site becomes a place where rank is displayed, enforced, and transmitted with particular intensity. High-ranking females have preferential access to the den entrance. Their cubs receive better protection, better positioning, and most critically, better access to milk. A hyena mother nurses only her own cubs. There is no communal suckling as in lions, and a high-ranking female's cubs can nurse without interruption. Low-ranking females and their cubs face constant competition for space near the entrance, for security within the communal group, for everything. The difference in cub survival rates between high-ranking and low-ranking females in well-studied populations is substantial. In the Masai Mara clans, tracked by researchers over multiple decades, the cubs of high-ranking females survive at measurably higher rates through their first year than the cubs of low-ranking females. This is not simply a matter of genetics. It is the direct consequence of social rank translating into resource access, which translates into cube survival, which translates into the perpetuation of rank through another generation. At the den, juveniles also begin the process of learning where they stand. Young hyenas play with each other constantly. This is how they build the social bonds that will define their adult relationships. But even play has a dominant structure. The cubs of high-ranking females win more play bouts. They push lower-ranking cubs off food items. They occupy the most central and most protected positions within the group. And low-ranking cubs learn, through thousands of these daily interactions, to yield to the animals that outrank them. What makes this even more fascinating is that the adults reinforce it. A high-ranking female will intervene in disputes between juveniles on behalf of her own offspring. She charges low-ranking cubs who challenge her cub, she displays at their mothers, she enforces the outcome. The clan as a whole is not a neutral arena in which cubs compete on equal terms. It is a structured social environment in which the deck is stacked, deliberately and systematically, in favor of those who already hold power. The transmission of rank is so reliable that researchers can predict, with considerable accuracy, the adult rank of a female cub based solely on the rank of her mother. Not perfectly, there are exceptions. There are occasional reversals. There are low-ranking females who rise through unusual circumstances, but the statistical pattern is unmistakable. Born to a high-ranking mother, you are likely to live a high-ranking life. Born to a low-ranking mother, the social current runs against you from your first day above ground. Now let us consider what happens when the social order is tested, because it is not a static thing. It is maintained through constant interaction, constant reinforcement, and occasional spectacular confrontations that remind every member of the clan exactly where things stand. Challenges do happen. A low-ranking female, emboldened by hunger or by the presence of her own cubs at risk, may push back at a higher-ranking animal. The response is immediate and overwhelming. The higher-ranking female does not simply assert herself. She recruits. Allies converge. Other high-ranking females join the display or the attack. The challenge is suppressed, not just by the individual power of the high-ranking animal, but by the collective weight of the coalition arrayed behind her. This is one of the defining features of hyena society. Rank is not maintained by individual dominance alone. It is maintained by alliance networks that amplify the power of those at the top and leave those at the bottom without backup. Alliance formation among spotted hyenas is sophisticated in ways that parallel what we see in primates. Females form preferential bonds with specific other females, grooming partners, coalition partners, animals they feed near and defend when threatened. These bonds tend to form along lines of relatedness. Close kin associate more with each other, but they extend beyond kinship in complex ways. Long-term social relationships between unrelated females are common and apparently valuable. A female with strong alliance networks is better positioned to defend her rank, better positioned to defend her cubs, and better positioned to assert herself at kills than a socially isolated animal of equivalent physical size. These social networks have been mapped in detail in several long-studied hyena populations, and the results are striking. Hyenas with higher social connectedness, more alliance partners, more strong bonds, show better survival in times of food scarcity, better cub survival, and higher lifetime reproductive success. Social rank matters enormously in this system, but social relationships matter too, and the two are deeply intertwined. The ability to form and maintain these relationships requires cognitive sophistication that researchers are only beginning to fully appreciate. Spotted hyenas recognize individual clan members by sight, sound, and smell. They track social relationships between third parties. They know not just how they relate to individual A and individual B, but how A and B relate to each other. This ability to model the relationships within the group, sometimes called third-party social knowledge, is rare among non-human animals and is thought to be a key component of the social intelligence that allows primates to navigate complex group life. Hyenas, it turns out, share this ability. Experimental work has shown that hyenas respond differently to recordings of coalition calls depending on whether the calling animals outrank them, whether the individuals involved are known alliance partners, and what the likely outcome of a confrontation would be. They are, in other words, doing social math. They are assessing coalitions, evaluating likely outcomes, and making behavioral decisions based on a sophisticated internal model of who in their clan is aligned with whom. This is not simple stimulus-response behavior. This is something that begins to look, to the observer, remarkably like strategic social thinking. And it may explain something that has puzzled observers of hyena feeding behavior for a long time: the apparent patience of low-ranking individuals at kills. A low-ranking hyena at the periphery of a feeding group is not simply waiting because she has no other option. She is, in many cases, actively monitoring the situation, watching which high-ranking animals are present, estimating how long the carcass will last, assessing whether any of her alliance partners are nearby, looking for the moment when a gap appears, when a high-ranking female is satiated and moves away, when an opportunity opens. When that moment comes, she moves. quickly, decisively, and with apparent knowledge of exactly how long she has before she is displaced again. This opportunistic feeding strategy, read the situation, wait for the right moment, exploit it quickly, is characteristic of subordinate animals across many social species. But in hyenas it seems especially refined, perhaps because the hierarchy is so steep and the consequences of miscalculating it so severe. You do not blunder into the middle of a feeding group at the wrong moment when you are low-ranking in a hyena clan. The cost of that mistake, in terms of injury or social sanction, is real. Let us spend some time now on the cacophony that accompanies all of this, the sounds of a hyena clan at a kill, because the acoustic landscape of a spotted hyena clan is itself a communication system of remarkable complexity, and much of what passes between individuals during a feeding event is encoded in sound. The whoop is the most famous hyena vocalization and the most long-ranging. It can carry for 5 kilometers or more across open savanna. But it is just one element of a vocal repertoire that includes the giggle, the yell, the fast whoop, the groan, the low, and the growl, among others. The giggle, despite its popular association with nervous laughter, is not primarily about amusement. It is a contact call produced during feeding frenzies and social interactions, and it encodes information about the individual's identity, social rank, and emotional state. Researchers analyzing hyena giggles have found that the acoustic structure of the call changes with the caller's level of arousal and social tension. A hyena that is being displaced produces a different giggle than one that is feeding undisturbed. The whoop, produced by raising the head, inflating the lungs, and calling into the open air, functions as an assembly call, a long-distance contact call between separated individuals, and a signal of social presence in territorial contexts. When a feeding event is detected, when one hyena finds a large carcass or hears the sounds of a hunt, whoops bring other clan members in from up to several kilometers away. The rank of arriving individuals will then determine the feeding order at that site. In this sense, the whoop is not just a communication device between the calling individual and its audience. It is the mechanism by which the clan's feeding hierarchy is assembled and activated around a resource. High-ranking females whoop more frequently than low-ranking ones, and their whoops elicit stronger responses from other clan members. There is evidence that the identity, and therefore the rank, of the calling individual is encoded in the acoustic structure of the call, and that listeners use this information when deciding whether and how quickly to respond. A whoop from the matriarch brings the clan together more rapidly than a whoop from a low-ranking peripheral female. Rank shapes not just what happens at a kill, but who shows up and how fast. The assembly of a clan around a carcass is therefore not a random rush of hungry animals. It is an ordered, hierarchy-aware process in which individuals are tracking who is called, from where, and whether the information is worth acting on. A low-ranking male, hearing the whoop of the matriarch, knows that a serious feeding event is in progress, and that when he arrives, his options will be limited. He arrives anyway, because even peripheral access to a large carcass is better than no access at all, but he arrives with behavioral settings already tuned to subordinate mode. This tuning is visible in the body language of subordinate animals as they approach a kill. The ears go back. The tail curves down, or is held low, rather than the erect, arching posture of a confident dominant animal. The spine rounds slightly. The approach is oblique rather than direct. These are not random behaviors. They are signals, read clearly by every animal present, that communicate rank and intent. They say, "I am not challenging anyone. I am not a threat to the feeding order. I am just trying to find a corner of this carcass that nobody else is currently using." And in response to these signals, high-ranking animals often allow subordinate ones to feed, because a subordinate animal that is not challenging the hierarchy is not worth the energy of driving off. The hierarchy is maintained not through constant aggression, but through constant signaling, a perpetual social negotiation carried out in posture and sound, and the precise geometry of who moves toward whom and who steps back. Now we need to consider what happens when lions arrive. The relationship between spotted hyenas and lions is one of the defining ecological dramas of the African savanna, and much of it revolves around food. Lions steal hyena kills with great regularity. They are larger, stronger, and their presence immediately restructures the feeding dynamics at any carcass. But hyenas do not simply abandon their kills to lions without response, and the way they respond is deeply shaped by their clan hierarchy. When a small number of lions arrive at a hyena kill, the response depends on how many hyenas are present. Hyenas are well aware of numerical ratios. They can assess how many lions are at a carcass and how many hyenas they have available, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. In the Ngorongoro crater, researchers found that hyenas were willing to challenge lions when the ratio of hyenas to lions was approximately 4-to-1 or better. Below that ratio, they yielded. The decision to stay or go is therefore not individual, it is collective, and it requires the kind of social assessment that only animals with good group-level awareness can make. When a coalition of hyenas does attempt to reclaim a carcass from lions, the behavior of the clan members is organized along hierarchical lines. High-ranking females lead the approach. They are the ones who whoop to recruit other clan members, who advance most boldly on the lions, who drive the action. Low-ranking animals follow, but hang at the back, contributing to the numerical effect without exposing themselves to the same risk. This is coalition behavior with a status gradient. The most dominant animals assume the greatest risk because they have the most to gain and the social capital to coordinate the response. When the matriarch advances on a young male lion, calling aggressively, and a coalition of high-ranking females supports her, the lion very often retreats. It is an extraordinary thing to watch, a 180-kilogram lion backing away from a 60-kilogram hyena, but the math of coalition versus individual works in the hyena's favor, and lions that have learned this lesson the hard way are often reluctant to test it again. A low-ranking hyena at the back of this coalition feeds afterward, when the carcass is reclaimed. Once again, rank determines access even in the wake of collective action. The animals that led the challenge to the lions are the first to return to the carcass. The animals that hung at the back wait their turn. There is something worth pausing on here. The cooperative behavior of hyena clans, the coordinated hunting, the coalition challenges to lions, the communal defense of territory, depends on the existence of the hierarchy. Without a clear and stable ranking system, the coordination required for these collective behaviors would break down. Who leads? Who follows? Who decides when to press an attack and when to retreat? In a hyena clan, these questions are answered in advance by the social structure. The matriarch decides. The high-ranking females act first. The structure of the group provides the organizational substrate for collective action. This may be the deepest answer to the question of why the hyena hierarchy is so elaborately maintained. It is not merely about distributing food. It is not merely about reproductive priority. It is the organizational principle of the entire society, the framework on which cooperation is built. Without the hierarchy, there is no clan, and without the clan, there is no successful hyena. Let us talk now about the circumstances under which rank can change, because the hierarchy is not entirely immutable, and understanding the conditions under which it shifts tells us a great deal about what maintains it in normal times. The death of the matriarch is the most significant event in a clan's social history. When the top-ranking female dies, the female ranked immediately below her does not automatically ascend without contest. There is a period of social turbulence, increased aggression, more frequent challenges, shifts in alliance patterns, as the new hierarchy reorganizes around the vacant position. Animals that were previously secure in their rank may find themselves challenged by coalition partners of the deceased matriarch, who now realign their loyalties. The period immediately following the death of a dominant individual is the moment of greatest social instability in any group-living species, and hyenas are no exception. In well-studied populations, this reorganization period can last weeks or even months. During this time, feeding priority at kills is less predictable, conflicts are more frequent and more escalatory, and cub survival may suffer as the social protective structure is temporarily disrupted. Eventually, a new hierarchy stabilizes, anchored by the now highest-ranking female and her coalition of allies. The social order reasserts itself, and the daily negotiations of feeding priority resume their familiar pattern. Rank can also change in response to injury. A high-ranking female who is seriously injured by a buffalo, by a lion, by another hyena, may be unable to maintain her social position. Her ability to assert herself in feeding situations depends on physical capacity, and if that capacity is compromised, lower-ranking females may begin to challenge her. This is a gradual process, with small tests and small yieldings accumulating over time, and it can result in significant rank reversals in animals that were previously stable in their positions. It is worth noting how rarely males participate in rank reversals among females. Even when a female is injured and socially weakened, the males in the clan do not take advantage of her vulnerability to claim higher rank. The male-female hierarchy is essentially inviolable. It is not a continuum but a categorical division, with females on one side and males on the other, and no male crossing over regardless of circumstance. This categorical rigidity is unique. In baboons, in chimpanzees, in wolves, dominance hierarchies have fluidity. Males can sometimes outrank females. The line between sexes is not absolute. In spotted hyenas, it is absolute. Every female outranks every male. Always. This is not a statistical tendency. It is a rule, encoded so deeply into the social system that exceptions, when they occasionally appear in literature, are treated with extreme skepticism by researchers who study these animals. The ecological consequences of female dominance extend beyond the feeding group. In terms of habitat use, movement decisions, and territorial defense, the preferences and behaviors of high-ranking females shape the entire clan's activities. It is the matriarch's tolerance of new den sites that determines where the clan relocates during dry seasons. It is the high-ranking female's response to territorial incursions that calibrates the clan's boundary defense. The males in the clan have relatively little influence on these collective decisions. They follow. They participate in territory marking and boundary patrols, but the spatial organization of the clan's life is built around the social preferences of the dominant females. At the level of individual feeding events, this means something very concrete. When a carcass is detected, by smell, by sound, by the sight of vultures descending, the first hyena to reach it broadcasts its location through vocalizations. What happens next depends on who arrives. If the first animals to arrive are low-ranking males, they may feed briefly, but will be displaced as higher-ranking females arrive. If a high-ranking female arrives first, she feeds with minimal interruption, and the animals that join her arrange themselves around the carcass according to the familiar gradient of rank. By the time the last animals arrive, the lowest-ranking males, the most peripheral clan members, there may be very little left. They feed on remnants and bones, cracking the bones with their enormous jaw pressure to extract the marrow that other predators cannot reach. In this sense, even the final stage of carcass utilization is determined by rank. Those with the lowest priority end up with the one resource that requires the most specialized anatomy to exploit. This is not incidental. Hyenas have the most powerful jaws, relative to body size, of any land carnivore. They can crack the femur of a giraffe. This anatomy is, in part, an adaptation to being last, to finding nutritional value in what others have left behind. The social hierarchy produces a feeding sequence, and the feeding sequence has shaped the anatomy of the lowest-ranked feeders. It is worth stepping back here and considering the full picture that this paints. The spotted hyena's extraordinary anatomy, those powerful jaws, that unusual reproductive structure, the androgen-rich physiology, is not a collection of random biological quirks. It is an integrated suite of adaptations, physical and behavioral, that together produce one of the most successful large carnivore social systems on the planet. The female dominance is not separate from the ecology of competitive scavenging. The powerful jaws are not separate from the feeding hierarchy. The complex social cognition is not separate from the demands of coalition formation. Everything connects. Everything reinforces everything else. And at the center of it all is the moment we started with, the kill, the settling dust, the hierarchy assembling itself around a carcass in the fading light of an African afternoon. High-ranking female moves first. Her cubs follow. Below her, the rank sequence of adult females arranges itself. The adult males take their places at the periphery. The lowest-ranking animals circle, wait, watch for their moment. The sounds are extraordinary. Growling, giggling, whooping, the bone-cracking percussion of powerful jaws working through what the others have left. The vultures crowd the margins, waiting for their own moment. Jackals dart in from the edges. Within this apparent chaos, there is order. Rigid, ancient, biologically enforced, socially transmitted order. Who eats, when, how much, it is all decided before the first animal arrives. It was decided at birth. It is being decided right now in the den, where cubs play and compete and learn their places in a society that will shape every meal they will ever eat. There are things we are still learning about spotted hyenas. Long-term studies in the Masai Mara, the Ngorongoro Crater, the Kalahari, and Botswana are adding nuance every year to a picture that was once seen as simple. We are learning that individual variation matters, that some low-ranking females are better than others at navigating their social environment, at forming alliances, at identifying feeding opportunities. We are learning that the social relationships between females are more complex than a simple linear hierarchy suggests, with coalitions shifting and realigning in response to changing ecological conditions. We are learning that males, despite their uniformly subordinate status relative to females, invest in social relationships with specific females that appear to pay off in terms of reproductive access. That patient, socially skilled males do better reproductively than aggressive or isolated ones. And we are learning, slowly and with great difficulty, just how cognitively sophisticated these animals are. Hyenas can learn by observing other hyenas. They can solve novel problems. They can flexibly adjust their behavior in response to social context in ways that suggest not just learned behavioral rules, but something approaching genuine social reasoning. A hyena, watching a feeding group from 50 meters away, is not just waiting. She is reading a social situation, assessing individuals, evaluating risk, and planning an approach. The waiting is active. The patience is intelligent. In many ways, the study of spotted hyenas has forced biologists to revise their assumptions about what kinds of animals can develop what kinds of social complexity. For a long time, social sophistication of the kind seen in primates was thought to require the brain architecture of primates, the expanded neocortex, the specific neural structures associated with social cognition in monkeys and apes. Hyenas do not have primate brains. But their social world is, in its demands and its sophistication, not obviously simpler than that of many primates. The convergent evolution of social intelligence, the same cognitive capacities evolving independently in animals that are not closely related, is one of the most fascinating findings to emerge from a decade of focused research on spotted hyena cognition. The rank hierarchy does not simply sort individuals for feeding, it sorts them for everything. For alliance formation, for reproductive success, for cub survival, for cognitive demands. High-ranking females in a hyena clan lead richer social lives, more interactions, more alliance partners, more complex social situations to navigate. Low-ranking animals, spending more time on the periphery, navigate a simpler social world. Whether this difference translates into differences in cognitive development, in the richness of social learning available to cubs born at different ranks, is a question that researchers are only beginning to ask. But it seems plausible that growing up at the center of hyena social life, surrounded by complex alliances and frequent high-stakes interactions, produces a cognitively different animal than growing up at the margins. If that is true, then the hierarchy is not just organizing the distribution of food. It is organizing the distribution of social experience, of learning opportunity, of cognitive development itself. The high-ranking female at the center of the feeding group is not just eating more, she is living in a richer world. And the low-ranking male at the periphery, cracking bones in the early morning light, eating what others left behind, is not just hungry. He is living out the logical endpoint of a social system that has been millions of years in the making, a system that decided his place before he was born, that reinforces it every single day, and that will determine, right up to the last meal of his life, exactly where he stands. This is what you are watching when you watch a hyena clan at a kill. Not chaos, not greed, not animals in blind competition with each other. You are watching social order operating in real time, ancient, precise, biologically rooted, and maintained through the daily choices of every individual in the group. You are watching one of the most sophisticated social systems in the animal kingdom express itself in the most primal possible act, the consumption of a meal. The next time you see footage of hyenas feeding, of that surging, snarling, cacophonous mass around a carcass, look closer. Look at who is in the center and who is at the edges. Look at which animals give way and which animals hold their ground. Look at where the cubs are positioned and how the adult females move. Listen to the calls, the giggling, the whooping, the deep groaning vocalizations that carry social information in every acoustic detail. You are not watching chaos. You are watching a society, and it is one of the most extraordinary societies that has ever existed on this planet. The Maasai herders who share these plains with hyenas have watched them for generations, and they will tell you that the spotted hyena is the most misunderstood animal in Africa. Reviled in folklore, caricatured as a cowardly scavenger, dismissed as dirty and laughable, the reality could not be more different. The The spotted hyena is a supremely successful, cognitively sophisticated, socially complex animal operating within a social framework that rivals anything seen outside the primates. It is a matriarchy built on biology, maintained through cognition, and expressed most visibly and most dramatically in the few square meters around a carcass on the African savanna, where every position, every bite, every yielding step, and every confident advance tells the story of who this animal is and how its world is organized. Some animals wait, some animals feed, and the difference between them is not luck, not strength, not who ran fastest or fought hardest during the hunt. It is rank. It is relationship. It is the product of a social system so deeply embedded in these animals that it operates in the first light of morning, in the failing light of evening, at every kill, in every clan, across every landscape where spotted hyenas have ever lived. That is the social ranking behind every kill, and it is one of the great wonders of the natural world.